Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners, but they'll tell you we're just fake news, deep state propaganda, funded by George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, BLM Marxists, and
Ray Rayner.
Waldorf and Statler, attorneys at law.
That movie that Kevin Hart and The Rock keep putting out every 6 months.
Well, we're such good friends. Let's make fun of each other. Wasn't that fun?
It's like,
Kevin Hart
look at
and
the big
somebody.
dude and the short guy. I'm like, oh, we don't have any other friend combination.
Kevin Hart and somebody, either the Ice Cube or whomever. Yeah.
He's
Always
like
somebody.
sidekick.
But everybody's, to be fair, is bigger than Kevin Hart.
And everybody's smaller than The Rock.
Yes, that's also true. He's bigger than.
How
He's
tall
bigger.
is The Rock?
Oh, he's got to be 6'5".
Was he always an actor? Was he
Monster.
a wrestler at any
He
time?
was a wrestler. Yeah.
Okay, is that how he got into acting?
Yeah.
You didn't know he
Oh,
wrestled?
okay. I mean, I do, but I feel like
The eyebrow,
he's
the
just
people's
been
eyebrow.
so famous in my mind for so long. I mean, I remember him as a wrestler, but I also didn't know if he was. I feel like I was a child, so I don't remember if he was an actor at the same
felt
time
like
he was
you
a
were a child?
wrestler. Well, I'm just saying I don't really remember. Like you know how somebody just been famous your whole life, like,
Yeah.
and you like, I don't even know how we got here. We just here. Like The Rock is like a brand. Like he's not even just.
I
a
remember
guy.
when he first came into WCW back in like 95
His
or
dad was
something like
wrestling.
that. Yeah, his dad was a wrestler and his grandfather. His
Mhm.
grandfather
Oh,
was
really?
his grandfather was Grand Chief Peter Maivia, and his dad was Rocky Johnson, who
Because they're Samoan, or he's Samoan, right?
the grandfather was. So his mom was Samoan, his dad was African American.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because I saw what was that movie where they actually filmed in, I think, American Samoa,
What
You know what I'm
wasn't
talking
it? Hobbs
where
and
they
Shaw.
had to like
There
fight
you go.
Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah.
Yeah, Hobbs
I was
And
and
I
gonna
Shaw.
thought
say,
that was
I was like,
really
Moana.
Yeah, Moana. He did.
Cool.
He
Get
did well.
out.
He was in Moana too. He was one of the characters, the god,
is-
the
that-
demigod.
Maui.
Maui.
That is my favorite fucking video if I'm ever having a bad day. Go on a fucking YouTube and look at The Rock singing Maui song to his daughter. And he's like, see, don't you believe that's daddy? No, that's Maui. Your daddy. I'm like, oh, this is
That's cute.
That's
it's
precious.
been years. And he keeps
That's
posting like
cute.
new ones. He's like, now do you believe it's me? And every time she's like, no.
Hey, it's
That's someone
okay to say
That's so
you're
cute.
welcome.
You sound very good, very close to him, but you're not Maui daddy.
That's so cute. Oh,
He is 6'5". He's 50.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
He looks
looks-
amazing.
He's not, 50 years old.
He
He's
doesn't
nowhere,
age.
nowhere near as good a shape as I am. Right.
I
Well,
don't feel bad.
Some
Dutch.
would say.
All right.
Some
So
would say.
this is Jason Dutch. Welcome to Dig on America. I'm here with the amazing attorney Anna, the
Hey, y'all.
slightly less amazing Mikey Famine.
Hello.
And our guest who's with us today, author of the upcoming book, Let's Get Sincere, a book on allyship. We have attorney and author Mark Berrios Ayala. We're going to do a dig today that might be a little bit on the controversial side in a way, because some of this is usually I do not write digs with bias. Okay, so I'm just going to come out and tell you right from the beginning. I wrote this with bias, but I also wrote it with facts, right? Like, so there are certain things where someone who is a centrist Democrat might be able to come and say, look, this is anecdotal, this is opinion, this is subjective, etc. There's a couple places here and there where that may be true, but 85-90% of this is just literal fact. Okay, because that's the way that we do digs here. So if this is your first time listening to the show, or you're listening on audio, check us out on YouTube, check us out on Twitch. You can go to youtube.com/dig on America. You can go to twitch.tv/dig on America. Please subscribe to the show. We need some subscribers. We're doing this for 14 months now, guys. So we're
with
about
the
to
program.
Yeah, we're gonna think big things are coming. Lauren Hubbard's show is gonna launch on July 10th. His first guest is going to be Alan Ellison, who's running a former Senate candidate from Florida, who is now running for Florida 23. Angelica Duenas is a progressive candidate in LA, is his second guest, and then Natalie James, the awesome Senate candidate in Arkansas, is going to be his guest as well for the first. So the first 3 shows are lined up. Breaking Barriers with Kimberly Kay and with Dino will be starting right around that same time, and then Marissa and I are going to do a show called Left Angle, which is going to start in a week or so, if not sooner. And then Attorney Anna, Ex Parte Time or something of that nature will be her show coming up probably sometime, I'm guessing, in the next couple of months. Yeah, August or so. So, and then Mark Berrios' show on our network will be starting in January. No, but
before you kick off the dig,
yeah,
let me get out my banner.
Please
Haven't done this in a while. Hi everyone, Famine the Inquisitor here. Just wanted to I was in the group chat there, but I was letting everybody know I was at the Better Conference in Fort Wayne, Indiana, hosted by the Atheist Network Group, Tang. Shout out to Oz, Pasta Mike, and Jenna for being lovely hosts. It was a good conference, and a lot of the conference was about like the toxicity in the atheist like YouTube groups, right? There's a lot of in-grouping. There's a lot of shade thrown, lines drawn in sand, a lot of guilty by association shit. And some of the larger people in the community spoke on it and did these great panels and stuff. And the very next day, the same people who really should have been listening, right back at it, like they never heard a word. So I have a message not just for my atheist friends, but for all of my YouTube friends. If you can't say nothing nice, then don't say nothing at all.
Thumper rule.
Thumper rule is in effect. Shut the fuck up is what you need to hear. No one fucking cares about your little fucking, oh, I have this many people, so I get to be toxic and abusive to people online. No, you don't. And when we were talking about allyship earlier, if you're an abusive, toxic piece of shit monster, you're not a fucking ally. Get your house in order. You're a bad actor. We don't want you helping us. Stay away from black people. If you're going to be nasty and shitty, stay away from trans people. Stay away from gay people. Stay away. Stay out of women's issues. They don't need you fucking burning the house down. It's hard enough as it is, and we got you, the one idiot with an oar, going the wrong way. If you don't want to be in the boat, get off the fucking boat. If you want to just go around and fucking dog paddle all by yourself, you have every space and opportunity to do so. But as soon as you attach yourself to a movement or a group of people who are trying to do something better for other people than themselves, you have to fall in line. We have to move with one voice. And that goes for Democrats as well, because Democrats are quick to get the piranha swarm going on somebody because they misgendered somebody on accident. And now they're a transphobe. Get them out of here. Well, let me tell you something. The Republicans are all marching lockstep, and that your rights are being stripped before your very eyes. Now are you done fighting? Would you rather spend some more time talking about things that are really important as opposed to picking fights amongst YouTubers? What else do you want to lose? What else do you have to lose? So no more bitching about Roe v. Wade until you guys actually get politicians on your show, until you actually get your people voting on your shows. If you're not doing that, then shut the fuck up. Because I'm tired of
about the state legislatures have been saying that for a long time. So
So that's the end of my rant. So if you're going to be a toxic motherfucker, get the fuck away from every movement that you can think of, because we don't need your fucking help.
A word.
Yeah, So I mean, trolls.
Amen. Okay. So with that being said, we'll get into today's dig, guys. That's a tough act to follow, but interestingly, there is
no comments from the panel. I mean, you just gonna stomp me out. Come on.
What can we
seen-
say after that?
I
That was a
seen
fantastic speech.
I seen Dutch over there like, ooh, yeah. And then I can.
What he's basically saying is, don't talk about it, be about it.
well, you
Yeah.
know, Mark's book. You know, you really could. I'm not trying to dig on your book here, Mark, but I mean, you could probably have written a book on the same topic with 4 words. Be nice to people.
Don't be a dick.
You know, yeah. I think
Well,
it's free.
It's a little
You
more
know-
in depth because I can be nice to Anna and not help her with a thing. So I don't, that's possible. So nice
That's
could be like, oh, you dropped a straw, there you go. But I'm not gonna say Black women lives matter with you. That's me being nice without being an ally. So that's possible. So
No, I get it.
I know what you're
Happens
trying
to me all the time.
Pick up your own
I'll be
straw,
like, thank
Attorney
you.
Anna. They're like, oh, we want Anna to pick up her own straw so she can bend over. You sick fox. Pick up the straw for her. Don't make
You
her
know what?
denigrate herself.
Men.
Yeah.
Just what a shame.
They'll drop their straw and hope Attorney Anna
Hey,
sees
I'm a
it.
man. I'm very proud
And
of
that's
it.
when I be like, you dropped your straw, sir. It's right here on the ground.
Hey, Mikey-
I'll be pointing
Mikey-
like a motherfucker. Like, hey, right here.
You
Mikey
dropped
said it
your
best.
straw.
Mikey said it best a couple weeks ago. We can't turn that part of ourselves off, but we can't ignore
Did I
it.
say that?
You did. So
I be drinking and smoking. I
Anyway,
don't remember shit that I say.
So let's get into today's dig now. My 8th grade social studies teacher
Mr. Humble.
taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. So I'm going to go through this dig. If any of my guests, Mark, I know you're first time here. If you want me to stop after I say something and comment, you can yell out pause and I will do so. And this week we're going to dive into the 2016 presidential primary and election. The topic of Bernie Sanders voters as it relates to that and how this narrative that the Bernie bros, quote, cost Hillary Clinton the presidency is not only going on far too long, but it is also false.
Who is still talking about this? Like after a whole election, like Russia to impeachment, like who is still going on about this?
So,
We are, but Anna, there's a reason why we're talking about this because the seeds that were laid in 2016, we kind of see problems of that happening here now, and we can get into it. That's what I think Mr. Dutch here is going with, but I could be wrong.
so well, we will see. So look at here, just real quick before I get into this, I just got this text today.
Oh,
Out of the blue. Okay. Out of the blue. 1:41 p.m. today. From Democrats for Action, who's a centrist group.
In Bulgaria,
They're
allies.
They're retweeting Terry Watkins, who, by the way, is a friend of the show. He's been on the show, right?
I'm about to say, I think I know him.
AOC went in and promised a bunch of lies that the actual working Democrats are going to be attacked for not fulfilling. So I asked her, or him or her, I don't even know if this person is a woman or a man. I asked them, I said, are you gonna, you got to be specific. Of course, nothing, right? So I'll stop sharing that. I have another Twitter rant that I'm going to go through as part of this dig. So this dig, as I warned you guys before, is about 15-20% longer than a normal dig, but listen, guys, I combed through dozens of articles and Twitter posts to put this together. So there's a lot more here to this. But anyway, so in Mr. Humble's defense on this, I will say he probably didn't know the future, but now it's the past, although it certainly seems to be an ongoing campaign. But I think I think I said last week, we're in the 7th year now of the 2016 primary. But let's look at it, starting with the outline. I'm going to outline the events preceding the DNC convention. So Bernie Sanders built a coalition with a populist movement centered around workers' rights, healthcare, raising the minimum wage, and not accepting money from most PACs. The primary turned out to be more competitive than expected, with Clinton winning 55% to Sanders 43%, and the races early in the primary were much closer, with Sanders leading at times. After losing California, the Sanders campaign released a video statement on June 16th, 2016, and announced that Sanders looked forward to helping Clinton defeat Trump, officially endorsing her on July 12th, One week after that, the WikiLeaks story hit. So on July 24th, 2016, Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down as DNC chair after WikiLeaks exposed emails showing key officials discussing ways to undermine Bernie's campaign. Emails from Schultz herself criticized Sanders for not being a member of the party and saying he would never be president. Schultz had served as the campaign manager for the campaign chair for Hillary's 2008 campaign against Obama. I'm sad that Mikey has left the studio for a second because he would really love to hear this. He actually, one of the things Wasserman Schultz did in 2008 against Obama, a lot of people don't know this, is she arranged for Hillary to be featured in a piece by Pat Robertson's Christian Broadcast Network early in the primary. This is still up on YouTube. This was in an attempt to highlight Clinton's deep Christian faith, clearly dog whistling her as the safer choice for Christians at a time when Obama was under attack for being Muslim, which was, of course, false. According to the New York Times, Schultz lost control of the DNC after Clinton's campaign inserted operative Brandon Davis to run day-to-day operations in June that year. And then Wasserman Schultz stepped down the day before the convention. Clearly, this agitated the Bernie Sanders and his supporters, as Schultz was supposed to be neutral in the primary process, and she herself was campaigning for Clinton prior to the election, to the convention, I'm sorry. Bernie then released a statement, quote, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has made the right decision for the future of the Democratic Party. By the way, Wasserman Schultz is a congresswoman in Florida. Yep. While she deserves thanks for her years of service, the party now needs new leadership that will open the doors of the party and welcome in working people and young people. The party leadership must also remain impartial in the presidential nominating process, something which did not occur in the 2016 race. Nope. End quote. And it is that statement, folks, along with the defection of Breonna Joy Taylor to the Jill Stein campaign and post general election loss, criticism of Hillary's campaign, and the DNC corruption by progressive media, those things spawned the narrative in this dig. So let's take a look at a screen share of an argument from one of the most outspoken centrists that you will ever come across on freaking Twitter. This woman
Barack
is
Obama. Oh.
No, this woman is in all of the circles. She doesn't have the most followers out there, so it's a little bit weird, but every time that you go into a Democrat room, and I guarantee that Marissa knows who I'm talking about here because she's as big on Twitter too. The name of the account is Building Back Betterer. So hopefully you guys can see this well enough. So I'm just going to kind of gloss through this. She sent me a tweet after we had gotten into a conversation about the Bernie conversation on Twitter. She sent me what Bernie Sanders primaries voters did in 2016. She's trying to build this narrative that I'm talking about here. And all this was unsolicited. As you can see, I never said anything to her. She just started emailing me this stuff. And I have many other people who have done the same thing. And it shows that here, as you can see, voted for Hillary Clinton, 74%, voted for Donald Trump, 12%, and then other candidates, which these are estimates from one poll, but you were looking at approximately about another 8 to 9%, depending on the poll you look at. Okay. So that's the narrative. Bernie, because Trump won by less than that many votes in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that it's the Bernie supporters' fault, right? It's our fault, people on this show. Politics is a numbers game, she says, and Sanders helped create a toxicity that helped Trump win. She's got a picture of Bernie's former campaign manager here, the African-American woman on the left, with Jill Stein on the right, his campaign co-chair. this Brianna, again, she's quoting her. Brianna Joy was like, "Oh, vote for Jill Stein." So because Brianna Joy Gray decided to support Jill Stein, then every progressive is guilty of this. So that's her logic. Then she puts up some quotes from another Bernie supporter who was criticizing Hillary Clinton. I'll get down on the eve before the election. It was one of Sanders' speechwriters. Again, they are basically attributing all of this to every progressive. Bernie's tweet, they're showing a tweet from Bernie before the convention, by the way.
Let me, hey, Dutch, there's something in the private chat for you. Can you go up to that Bernie tweet? I want to read that one.
Okay.
I'll read while you read that.
Yeah, go ahead.
This from Bernie. This was on June 6th this year. Corporate Dems have spent millions in Democratic primaries in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Oregon, and Michigan to defeat progressives. They want a two-party system in which both parties are owned by big money interests, the future of American democracy. There you go. There you go.
There you go. See, I didn't know how to do that. That's a new one for me.
I got you, homie.
So thank you.
I don't know where the thing went.
No.
I didn't think I probably shouldn't have found something to read.
Well, it's okay. That was one of the less important things. So,
okay.
All right, I'm going to scroll through this again. I'm trying to do this with somewhat of a degree of quickness here. So this sends a meme, Bernie or bust. By the way, it does matter that Sanders' toxicity gave us Trump. Maybe you don't realize since your rights aren't being destroyed. So again, I'm a man. I basically replied to her. She says Sanders is not the arbiter of progressivism. That's kind of the point. He's actually one of the least effective members of Congress, irrelevant. He's undermining the left every day by hypocritically pretending he is the only pure one. That's your opinion. Even his desire to kneecap Democrats with his bogus funding purity test plays straight into deep pocket Republicans. Unilateral disarmament is stupid, but what Sanders is demanding is so that his dark money can be backed candidates can win more easily. I'll disprove that. He's an ally to his own admissions, etc. So there's a couple more here. So she's basically trying to say that because Bernie takes money from Ben and Jerry's, that he's as bad as somebody who takes money from Northrop Grumman. Taking money from a fucking ice cream maker is not the same as getting it from an oil company or from a military company, a contractor. So anyway, again, she talks about the taking money from him. And there's a couple things that I want to point out here before I move on from this. She says Hillary campaigned in the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest and I went to her rallies there. Again, anecdotal. Part of the voter suppression was an active measure between Putin, Trump, and Jill Stein. The fact that Sanders' own staffers fell for the Russian ruse says a lot about his own bad judgment. To this day, Sanders undermines the party as he sought control. We need workhorses, not show horses. And Sanders and many who claim to be progressive in Congress spend too much time spewing and little time doing. I actually agree with that statement. Those in the media, including podcasters, need to stop pretending that Bernie is who he says he is. And then this is my favorite right here. She's saying, well, basically she said that because he never won a state, we can't take his opinion. That's kind of dumb because he did win California, many other states in the primary. But she says, fact, Sanders takes corporate money. Fact, your podcast is a GOP tool. Fact, Sanders is and always has been a terrible lawmaker and a great grifter, which is why he appeals to you. Spewing is either easier than doing, which is why you do it so well. Go help John Fetterman. Let me know when you start doing some door knocking, fundraising, and text phone banking to get out the vote for him. Not for him, but what the fuck do you think this podcast is? Number one, and number two. Anyway, so
let's take a pause right there. Because this is always so interesting to me.
And remember, all this was unsolicited.
Right.
Just because she couldn't beat me in a debate.
Trolls. This is one of the reasons why I don't like arguing with people, period. So,
I don't.
Really? The lawyer doesn't like arguing with folks? Wow.
It's about advocacy.
Oh.
I just find it funny that Well, Build Back Better. Thanks for watching the show. We appreciate your viewership. Maybe go back a couple episodes. Maybe go back for years. Check the record. If only there was some recorded video and sound evidence of all of our takes for the last 3.5, 4 years. Well, 3.5, 4 years for my part. If only there was a way to know exactly what our takes were and exactly what we said at the time. Oh, wait, we have all of that. We have all of that. And none of what you're saying comports to reality. So your delusion is your delusion. You're entitled to keep it. I would drop it if I were you. Because if you actually watch the fucking show for like more than 10 minutes, you wouldn't be talking out of your ass. I don't want to be nice today. I was out in the sun.
Okay.
So I agree with that statement. Now back to the dig here. So, and I wanted to show that because I wanted to put some context to it so that people just don't think I'm creative. And I have at least 8 or 9 other people in the last 2-3 weeks who've just sent me unsolicited stuff. Some with better intentions than others,
Why
right?
are people just hitting you up with
because
this?
I go into Twitter Spaces and I have good arguments.
Oh,
he'd be looking for smoke.
I used to be a Twitter arguer myself for a long time, and then I was just like, I don't know. It just feels like I'm doing this for free, arguing with y'all. Now I get to argue with people for money.
Right.
Well, you're smarter than we are.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that all lawyers are not smart people.
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever been to law school? You'll see what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Leave me small because my video is a little bit laggy, so I don't want to be the center here. But all right, so okay, first, why did Trump beat Hillary? All right, I'm going to recap that. So, well, there's like 50 reasons. Okay,
Yeah.
One was Trump got an extraordinary amount of coverage from all the way from the GOP primary because he was Trump, all the way through to the general. MSNBC, in fact, he had about 80% of the total coverage between the 19 major candidates, 17 GOP and 2 Democrat. Okay, 80% of the total coverage was about Trump in some capacity. 2016 was also the first election, as our 2 lawyer friends here know, since the Supreme Court weakened the Voting Rights Act in 2013. New voting restrictions had the effect of driving down turnout among groups that tend to vote Democrat. He also gained, and by the way, don't remember seeing any of that in Building Back Better or Blue's posts. He also gained the support, Trump, of evangelicals, oddly enough, due to a handful of prosperity gospel celebrities and so-called prophets such as Hank Kunneman and Kat Kerr promoting Trump to the church as Cyrus 2.0, basically saying that Trump is an imperfect vessel being used by God that will turn America back into a Christian nation, the Christian nation it was intended to be, at least according to those lunatics. Mark, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Also, his judicial appointments were partially done to appease them. Hence the Friday's decision. That's the legacy of it. So that's supposed to say, I'm legit.
You are precisely correct. Again, I don't recall seeing any of this in her messages. But back to reality. Oh, well, right? Critics say that Hillary didn't campaign enough in Michigan and Wisconsin. And by her own admission in her book, What Happened, she was caught by surprise in Wisconsin. Those are her words. The former Secretary of State wrote in her book that her team had more staffers on the ground than Obama did in 2012 and spent 211% more on TV ads in Pennsylvania and 167% more on TV in Michigan than Obama had. So here's my point to that. Not very good argument, because all of this took place, if you look at statistics, while people were cutting the cord. No way that could possibly be important that cable news was going down and things like YouTube channels and stuff like that were coming up during that time. HRC spent more than Obama had, but those ads were clearly ineffective. They are still online. You can go watch them. They are not particularly great ads. They focused on Trump. They didn't focus on the issues. They didn't focus on her sluggish likability numbers, and were sorely ineffective online, which I'll prove by numbers in a second.
Real quick.
Hillary. Hillary was also hurt badly.
Marissa.
Marissa in the chat, hi Marissa, says, "Look at Ted Cruz for fuck's sake."
Exactly.
The worst.
What did he turn tuck tail after Trump called his wife ugly?
And can I just say, before we move on from that topic, there is no way that anybody that I'm associated with could let me get called ugly on TV in front of people, and you think we gonna be cool after that? I can't believe she's still with him.
She went straight
That's
to Cancun
crazy.
without his ass.
Hey, it was the opposite of Will Smith. He said, "You will talk about my wife."
That was. Did y'all see when he went on? Well, this when Chris Cuomo was on TV, when Chris Cuomo called him out on it.
Yeah, fuck.
He
Chris
was like,
Cuomo.
"Oh, I can't." Well, yeah, but he was like, Chris Cuomo was like, "Why are you so afraid of Trump?" He's like, "I'm not afraid of Trump." He was like, "He called your wife ugly." He's like, "Well, this is why people don't come on your show, because you don't want to let him talk." I'm like, "No, he called your wife ugly, Ted. You need to address it.
You need to go defend your wife's honor. Be chivalrous."
I would have asked him. I would have said, "Hey, yo, Trump, why don't you name all your kids?" That's what I thought. No one knows the last one's name.
You talking about Barron?
Oh shit! One person knows
Tiffany.
We know that baby is like 6'8". Like you can't even miss him.
No, Eric. He doesn't know who Eric is.
He is so tall.
Name all your kids in order.
Shark Week.
Fine.
What about Stormy's kid? Anyway, Hillary was also hurt badly. Let's not forget, by the reopening of the investigation into her emails by James Comey in October, just a few days before the election.
Did y'all see that movie? Sorry, there's like a movie documentary on James Comey. I think it's called Comey. It's actually,
I didn't know they had that.
Oh yeah. I can't remember if it's on HBO Max or Netflix. It's on one of the streaming services. It's fantastic because they actually highlight like what it was like for him weighing the decision to release the information about the emails, the impact that he thought it might have had on the election, like what his calculations were in doing all this stuff and how it was kind of biased, what his family thought about it. Like it's really fascinating. So if you ever get a chance, or anybody listening, if you get a chance to watch it, I think it's called Comey, go ahead and watch that. Now, the guy that got to play him don't look anything like him, but the guy was a great actor. So it's a really fascinating movie because I felt like I learned a lot about what he was trying to do. And it just, Mark, it sounds like you watch it. It sounds like the effort was, the goal was noble, but the way he was going about it was just completely backwards and just misguided. But he was in control, so he just.
I also think he's not the most politically savvy person, especially in the movie when he meets with Trump. I'm like, why are you there, dude?
I agree.
You can't be seen with this person and appear, apolitical. You just can't. So, but I don't know. I mean, the movie seems to suggest maybe he just doesn't have the instinct for it. But
it made it seem like he genuinely was unaware of some of the implications of his actions, which was kind of it was really concerning because he was like, "Oh, well, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt." And it's just like, bro, you cannot be doing that. Like this is not that. And when he finally realized who Trump was, or, the movie makes it seem like he finally realized it was too late because all of the damage that he had done was already done. And he was like, even his family told him, like, not to give too much about it away, but his family, his wife and kids begged him not to do that stuff. Like they were like, you cannot release this about Hillary's emails and all that. You're going to ruin the election. We cannot let this man win. And he was like, I have a duty, basically.
Well, it must have been God. God influenced him to do that. That or he's a Bernie bro. I mean, there's your answer. Comey
I was about to say, Comey was
it made him
a
seem
Bernie
kind of.
bro.
It made him seem kind of stupid. Like
joking.
The movie made him seem kind of just not. Yeah, like Mark said, like not politically savvy, but just not. It just made him seem incredibly unaware for the power of the office that he had. It just made it seem just very aloof as to the gravity of what was going on. And maybe secretly he thought, like a lot of people thought, like there's no way Trump's going to win. So whatever. But like it was almost cringy to watch him be in certain rooms and be making certain rationalizations for some of his actions. Like it just, when you get a chance to watch it, Dutch, go watch it because I want to talk with you about it.
It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie, so it's interesting.
Yeah,
I will take up that advice. Okay, here I was.
How about another one?
in
NAFTA.
addition, say I didn't hear what you said.
NAFTA
Oh, with
position for NAFTA and trade.
her position or Trump's?
Both.
Well, I don't remember what her position was on NAFTA off the top of my head.
Well, yeah, Trump was
Refresh my
like, let's
memory.
get rid of it and renegotiate it. And Hillary was like,
yeah.
just like everyone else is like, let's not press that. And a lot of people just don't like NAFTA, but no one wants to talk about that. So
I actually don't. I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot. I can't remember everything, so thank you for that. I totally forgot that she took that position. And I mean, I will say, like people always say, what did Trump do good? The North American, the U.S. Mexico. What is it? The USMCA? Is that how the acronym
North
goes?
American Free Trade Agreement.
Well, that was NAFTA. The new one is the USMCA, right?
MCA.
Yeah, it's marginally better. You know, it's basically NAFTA 2.0, but there are some improvements over it. But they basically, to me, took the whole thing, rewrote it, and added a couple places where it was lacking. You know, it's like it's not. They advertise it as being completely new legislation, but I'll give credit where it's due. Great, you did one good thing. Well, now let's talk about how you're fighting with LeBron James online. Anyway, so Hillary, not only with the Comey thing, she was, and I admit she was a victim of that. We were a victim of that. Women's rights ended up being a victim of that. She was a victim also of social media voter suppression campaign. Now, this was led mostly by Russian bots. All this stuff is pretty much out there these days. According to a Washington Post survey from 2018, the Russian bots and this sort of social media voter suppression kept about 4 million Obama voters who had voted for Obama in 2012, mostly white women and African Americans, from going to the polls. So we know that the black vote on this was targeted by suppression efforts from Russian trolls, as made clear, by the way, in ads released by the social media companies and reports by Bloomberg News, and even the Trump campaign itself has documented this. And I'll put all these links below. So Clinton's 1996 suggestion that the super predator statement was the basis for all of this effort to discourage the black voters, and they had other stuff that they used for white women. Then there was Trump's, and this is huge, Trump's $95 million investment in Brad Parscale as digital media campaign manager. Parscale used social media advertisements with a marketing strategy of different face expressions, font colors, and slogans like basket of deplorables, which was a HRC quote. After Parscale realized that Virginia and Ohio were unable to be swayed, he reallocated those campaign resources to Michigan and Wisconsin. Parscale enlisted Cambridge Analytica and used employees from Facebook, Twitter, Google, Snapchat, and other platforms for the campaign advertisements, and directed his staff to navigate those platforms so that they would become proficient in utilizing those platforms' capabilities. Parscale was especially successful in utilizing Facebook to target voters in swing states. Parscale said this quote, "I understood early that Facebook was how Donald Trump was going to win. Twitter is how he talked to the people. Facebook would be how he won." According to Pew Research, in January 2016, 44% of U.S. adults reported having learned about the 2016 presidential election from social media exclusively. Trump initially self-funded his campaign, but once that narrative had stuck, Parscale set up a major grassroots campaign on Facebook that quickly brought in funding from across the U.S. with assistance from those social media companies. He said that because the Trump campaign wanted to spend $100 million on social media, the social media companies jockeyed to assist the campaign in using that money effectively, hoping for a larger share. Okay. The Washington Post wrote this, and in light of Trump's narrow margins of victory, Parscale could, quote, justifiably take credit. Again, citing Pew, while the candidates' level of posting was about the same, in other words, Bernie, Hillary, Trump, they all posted about the same amount of messages, the public response was not the same. So here's my evidence for the earlier statement. In every measurable category of user attention, the public responded to Trump's social media updates more frequently than to other candidates' posts, good and bad, and both equal algorithm, right? So Trump's posts on Twitter, for example, were retweeted an average of 6,000 times each, compared with 1,500 for Clinton and 2,500 for Sanders. And remember, this triggers algorithms that brings more clicks. So click on Dig on America and give us some more clicks. But still, there is the fact that a percentage of Bernie voters, like Building Back Better said, did vote for Trump. So let's discuss that one and let's find out why. Okay. Now, the narrative clearly is that it's progressives who supported Bernie. Progressives defected at 15 to 25%, and progressives voted for Trump and Jill Stein over Clinton. This is exactly what was in her graph. The narrative claims that these were dependent on Democratic voters. That's what they're saying. These votes were dependent on. They were in the polls and everything, whom otherwise would have voted for HRC had they not been such big, whiny, misogynist, and racist babies. That's basically their narrative. Right. So I'd like you guys to meet one guy who was a Bernie bro in 2016 and did not vote for Hillary. This guy. I voted for Gary Johnson. So the narrative must be true then, right? I've just disproved my own dig and proved her correct, right?
I knew it.
Pause. I mean, well, after Mickey.
Yeah. Well, the answer is no. And I'm going to tell you why. Because in 2015, Mikey, what party did I belong to?
The Republican Party.
Correct. There was no chance I was going to vote for Trump, but there was never a chance in hell that I was going to vote for Hillary. I was a Republican, but I liked Bernie, and I was not fucking alone. So before I get into brass tacks here, let's look at another time people shifted parties due to populist efforts. The Reagan Democrat. During the 1980 election, voters were disillusioned with the economy, like they are now, of the late 70s, and Jimmy Carter's struggles, and thus supported California governor and former Democrat Ronald Reagan. Reagan's populist, optimistic tone won over traditional Democrats to an almost unprecedented degree. Stan Greenberg issued a study of Reagan Democrats analyzing white union auto workers who no longer saw the Democratic Party as champions of their working class aspirations, but instead saw them as working primarily for the benefit of very poor, feminists, and minority groups.
Right.
They also supported Reagan's strong stance on national security and opposed taxes. Back to this in a second. Bernie Trump voters voted for Bernie in 2016 in the primary, but voted for Trump in the general. Now, according to the Cooperative Congressional Election Study, these voters comprise an estimated 10 to 12% of Sanders supporters and another 10 to 12% of his supporters that voted for third party. Okay. So it's likely true that if all Sanders supporters had voted for Clinton, then she would have won. Though, to be fair, nobody in that camp likes to talk about what the percentage of hypothetical Hillary Trump voters would have been if Sanders had won the nomination, but nonetheless. So then, like, would Hillary people have voted for Bernie? I can't say, but we don't know. But anyway, that's a straw man, but it's my argument anyway. So then Dutch, the Blue Dogs are correct, right? The Blue Dogs have to be right. You keep proving them right. Bernie is a progressive, so anyone voting for Bernie must be a progressive. It's progressive's fault. Dutch, you idiot.
Duh.
Not so fast. Remember Greenberg? Remember Greenberg, who I just talked about, who studied the Reagan Democrat white union workers? Mm-hmm. Greenberg periodically, just so it turns out, revisited these voters. This same group said they were comfortable with Bill Clinton because he was fiscally conservative and tough on crime. Bill himself called himself a different kind of Democrat and aligned himself with third-way policies. If you don't know what third-way policies are, it's basically akin to centrism. It marries center-right economics with center-left social policies. Many of these folks grew comfortable with Obama. Comfortable is the key word here. I wish Haas was here to hear this, because Obama had become, quote, normal and uninteresting.
Right.
Greenberg also pointed out...
Until he wore the tan suit.
Until he wore the tan suit. Then he was too interesting.
Then he should have just had a do-rag and a plaque of blacks and a BCD.
Hey, you want to talk about third term?
Yeah, they could have swore that Obama was going to do a third term, right?
If he pulled out with the club Shay Shay with the bottle of Crown and some Black and Miles,
They'd have signed an amendment to the Constitution.
man, we would have had to
Listen,
change
he
some
would have had
things.
Shannon Sharp with his feet up.
So Greenberg also pointed out, again, as he's following up with these groups, that he pointed out that this group's growing, quote, middle-class anger and frustrations about race and Democratic politicians bothered him. He couldn't get over it. So not shockingly, Greenberg's study found that these voters voted for Trump in 2016 and again in 2020. I'm sorry, but do these people sound like progressives?
Sure.
Obama-Trump voters is also a thing. So these are people who voted for Obama in 2008 and then Trump, and is a group that aligns somewhat with Reagan Democrats, according to Reagan biographer Craig Shirley. Data shows that in 2016, these voters comprised about 13% of Trump voters, almost exclusively white males, many of whom had already defected and voted for Romney in 2012. Don't forget to stop me when these groups sound like progressives. Fact is, the Reagan Democrat was drawn to the message of the Sanders campaign. The Obama-Trump voter was drawn to the message of the Sanders campaign. But they were likely, like myself, never in the reach of Hillary's campaign because it wasn't a populist campaign. Compared to other Sanders voters, these Reagan Democrat adjacent Sanders Trump voters are less likely to identify as Democrats and have more conservative views on social and racial issues. You don't say. They tend to be older and are more likely white than the bulk of Bernie supporters, which was very young and diverse bloc. According to 2017 research by UMass, Sanders Trump voters were much less likely to identify as Democrats than Sanders voters who voted for Clinton or for a third-party candidate, which is about half the voting bloc. So half the voting bloc of those people who were that 25%, half of those people were identified themselves as Republicans or conservative-leaning independents. So you're looking at somewhere between 10 and 14% of the Bernie voter that was Republicans or conservative-leaning independents at the low end. Over 40% of Sanders Trump voters disagreed that white people have advantages, compared to less than 10% of Sanders voters who voted for Clinton. The CCES survey I mentioned before showed that only 17 and 8 to 18% of Sanders Trump voters identified themselves as ideologically liberal, with the rest identifying as moderate or conservative. The ones who voted third party, again, voted for Bernie in the primary, voted for like Gary Johnson or whomever, like myself. About 50 to 60% estimated of those voters identified as liberal. Okay. So you're starting to get, as you can see here, if you're doing math, a very, very small percentage of the Bernie voter that remains that can actually be your run-of-the-mill progressive. Again, also, let me know when all these people who are uncomfortable with race and LGBT issues, let me know when they start sounding like progressives who literally run LGBT candidates like on purpose. Okay. Data from a voter survey, VOTER capitalized, it's a company, showed that these Bernie supporters rated minority groups less favorably than Sanders Clinton voters. This included Latinos, Muslims, and LGBT plus folks. The same survey showed that only 35% of Sanders Trump voters had voted for Obama. That's a small percentage. In contrast, 95% of Sanders Clinton voters voted for Obama. And that later group, turns out, includes the progressives. The blue dogs make the mistake of confusing unenthusiastic about Hillary with the propensity to not vote for her at all, and that is wrong. It is true Bernie's populist message focused on a plan for America, not specifically a plan for certain groups. While it's fair to criticize that, it worked for drawing in those working class, older, white, more socially conservative voters.
Right.
But blue dogs seem to think Bernie should have refused the support of that bloc. Maybe they're right. But the silence on the same group that supported Bill that silence is very loud.
Yep.
It's deafening. It's so silent because, that maybe Bill should have turned away all those conservative Southern Dixiecrats. Overall, as many as 22% of Sanders supporters were aligned closely in political views to Reagan Democrats. So those 22%, and this is from an aggregate of studies, 22% of Sanders voters were basically the same as Reagan Democrats. Reagan Democrats have been voting Republican for quite a while, since Reagan. They may have been comfortable with Obama, like we said, but they weren't Obama supporters. Political scientist John M. Sides agrees that this group was, quote, unlikely to be inclined to support Clinton in the first place, close quote. Tim Chapman, let's hear from the other side. Tim Chapman of the conservative advocacy group Heritage Action, those lunatics, suggested that both Trump and Sanders had a strong populist appeal, especially to working class voters, despite their starkly different policies, and that Sanders' early appeal to later Trump voters in 2016 was due to his outsider status, his populist policies, and his targeting of issues which affected groups of people Trump later attempted to court in his campaign. This block of voters is out there, and they don't have a real home. Because they were drawn to Bernie, who for a time was seen as having a better shot than Trump did against Ted Cruz, is not all that crazy, nor unprecedented. Why do I say that? Well, moreover, defections from a primary to general election are common, people.
Yep.
More voters went. This one. I can't wait till Building Back Better gives me her reply to this. More voters went from Hillary Clinton to John McCain in 2008 than went from Sanders to Trump in 2016. This is according to data outlined in a Vox 2017 article on research conducted by the University of Massachusetts. Let me repeat that statement. More voters went from Hillary after she lost the primary to Obama and voted for McCain in 2008 than went from Sanders to Trump in 2016. And that was without a populist movement, because Obama's movement was not necessarily populist. It had some elements of it, but I wouldn't classify it that way. Last, exactly zero of the independent progressive media outlets that supported Bernie in the primary endorsed anyone other than Hillary Clinton. Young Turks, Sam Cedar, etc. Ring of Fire. Progressives are not socially conservative. Every single LGBT plus candidate is a progressive. The centrists have zero.
But they have people. They have friends.
They have friends.
They have gay friends. They have lesbian friends. So it's,
Now back to Building Back Better pointed out that and I'll concede here that she's right. Bernie, she's correct. Bernie has some real problems when it comes to his reach into communities of color. That's super fair criticism.
He got the barbecue pass from Killer Mike. He good.
Yeah, but that criticism though, that's a criticism of Bernie. That's not a criticism of the progressive wing. And that is evidenced by the demographics of progressive candidates, of which nearly 70% of the people of color or LGBT, compared with 35% of non-progressives who are people of color or LGBT. And I missed that. I think I miscommunicated that right there when I wrote this down. So basically what I was trying to say there was, of the candidates that are running for office right now, 70% of progressives are either people of color or LGBT. Ballpark-ish, right? And I went through and I found like 75, 80 candidates that I based this on that are all running now. Okay. So 35% of non-progressives are people of color with zero LGBT that I could find. Okay. Now you might find one. I didn't find it, but still 2016 was an election cycle in which Trump's margin of victory was one of the narrowest in U.S. history. So in closing, it came down to about 78,000 votes in 3 states. While there is substantial evidence that specific blocks of Bernie voters voted for Trump or others in 2016, there is no evidence and further no logical line of thinking that people who identified as progressives in 2016 voted for anyone other than Hillary in significant numbers, or that the Bernie primary voter was the only factor. It should also be noted that 86% of eligible progressive left Democrats voted in the election. 86% voting among progressives. That number is rivaled by one group, the faith and flag conservatives. What might be the blue dog Democrat, moderate Democrat percentage, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking that. It's 68%. So even if some of those progressives did defect, that number is dwarfed by the 32% of blue dogs that stayed home willingly. Or to be fair, in some cases were suppressed. 32% of a far larger amount of moderate Democrats than there are of progressives is of huge significance in this complex equation. So here's my closing thought, my Jerry Springer.
My final thoughts.
Stop, be kind to yourself and each other's. Stop blaming progressives for 2016. Your story and your stats do not add up. They don't line up with reality. Stop picking fights. You're such a big proponent of reaching across the aisle. Reach within the aisle.
It's like I said
And
earlier,
stop
man.
being so fucking toxic because we're trying to be on your goddamn team.
No, I don't want you to be on my team. I want everyone's support, and I don't want anybody to help me do it.
So I have a bunch of other stats written down here that I'm not going to go into because this took a while. The guest of the show, Mark Berrios Ayala, we'll go to you first. Your thoughts, am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I think your statistical analysis is sound. So, no, I don't think it's the progressives there. I think the real reason why we get the blame is because they bumped heads with the Hillary crew at the 2016 DNC convention. And even then, not a lot of news coverage really covered what happened there. So I heard there was a giant walkout of Bernie people there. So I was going to have... That was, newsworthy, but a lot of places didn't cover it. So, and I think that kind of created the beef. So even for my involvement with the Democrats here in Florida, I kind of see that there's a bit of a rift there, and there's not a lot of Bernie people that are involved with them. So,
yeah, and if you look at, and here's the funny thing, you look at the 2020 election, progressives still supported Bernie. A lot of them wanted Elizabeth Warren. Who'd they vote for? In unprecedented numbers.
Hillary.
No, in 2020. I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me.
Biden. They voted for Biden. In fact, we won you the election. So
that's why I'm trying to figure out why we still in 2016. I'm like, we have bigger and different fish to fry for us to be trying to go back and rehash. We've already took the toothpaste out the tube. Like, why are we doing this?
Attorney Anna, there's 2 reasons why. One, they don't like AOC.
Mm-hmm.
What does she have to do with anything, though?
She's a progeny of Bernie. I mean, she's the younger, she's the one for the millennial generation. I mean, Bernie, I like him in a lot of ways, but he's getting past his prime. I don't think he's going to run again for president. I don't think he should anymore.
No, he's done, and he should go. He should go away. You're right.
I mean, AOC is, she's the one to carry on his movement for our time. She's going to be in D.C. for a while. I mean, I don't know if she'll become a senator or anything. I'm a bit... Everyone has an opinion on her, and that tends to hurt you when you have higher political aspirations. But she's going to be there for a while. But the reason why we're talking about this is the fighting between the progressives and the centrists kind of really started in 2016 to get bad, and it's continuing now because and one of the reasons why we talked in the previous show about why a lot of people don't like Biden, including some of us on this panel here, is because I believe some of us are on the progressive wing, and we find Biden's on the centrist wing. And we can see from his political appointments, he makes a lot of overages to corporate America that are fleeing the Republican Party because of Trump over the progressives, like some of us here that are the loyal supporters of the Democrats. So that's the reason why we're still talking about it, because that still continues. I mean, this is one point where 2 years is not a lifetime in politics.
Well,
yeah, I could see that, but I just don't understand what good does it do to bring up the whole, Hillary Bernie situation, or even
Because that beef
like,
still goes on now.
yeah, but it's just like at some point I get it, like I get that that's the roots of the beef, but like it's a completely different board now. Like it's not even the like we have to reorganize.
There's a different piece here, and I was going to bring that up, and I'm gonna have Mikey answer it for me. Mikey.
Yes.
What is the projections for this upcoming election, 2282 midterms? What are they projecting?
I don't know what they're projecting.
You don't know what they're okay? I'll tell you what they're projecting.
I thought it was going to be like my opinion on something. I was like, oh,
no,
I know that.
No, this is. I apologize. I thought you knew this, but the projection right now is that we're going to get our asses handed to us in the 2022 midterms. The projection is that we might lose the Senate, and we're almost certain to lose the House. So, what do you think they might need on the centrist side? What might they need after that loss?
What might the centrists need?
Yeah, they need a scapegoat.
Yeah.
I was off. I'm like, they need a W.
I was off on that
they're preparing for a scapegoat, while at the same time, every progressive, not every, but most progressive candidates out there, even if they're in blue districts or running for re-election, Pelosi is putting up centrist Democrats against them and funding them. They're trying to get the progressives out of office. Like, think about this.
Every progressive we've talked to has had no help from their local Democratic chapter. And most cases, they're actively running stuff against the progressive candidate.
Or telling them that they shouldn't be running.
Right.
And I know of one case where they asked the centrist, and it's not even a centrist, they asked the more center guy to get out. I know of one case out of like the 50 that I know about. And you guys got to remember, I talk to candidates like all the time. Okay. Like a massive amount of candidates, ones that have been on the show or haven't been on the show. And like and it's sad because I'm kind of a big deal, because they are, these people are just exercising their constitutional right to run for office. And they have a particular viewpoint that it seems to me that the center left is more afraid of than they are of the right. And I hate to keep saying that and beating a dead horse, but like we keep talking to people that tell us this, and so you can't like continue to fund centrist candidates. They ran someone and sponsored them for like, through a PAC of like $3 million against AOC in 2020. And they want to get mad at her. Like, yeah, is it fair criticism that AOC needs to write policy? You're goddamn right. She needs to start writing some fucking policy.
Yeah.
Saying it right here. AOC, get your fucking pen out of your goddamn pocket and start writing. But that doesn't change the narrative. They need a scapegoat. They know that we're going to lose. And like, I hope we don't. I think we can keep fighting and win. But they're just going to say, oh, you guys were too loud, or you guys didn't vote, or whatever. It's going to happen.